Hey everyone, Eric with Rockin' H, and this is the video you have been asking for a long time. How do you slam a DCP Peterbilt? Now, what I'm about to show you will work on a DCP 389, 59, 79, also the Kenworth W900L. Those are probably the most popular trucks that people want to lower and make, just a low riding looking truck. So without further ado, we're gonna flip this bad boy over, and I've already popped these a little bit, but really all we're gonna do is we're going to flip these two spindles. And the reason for that is the spindle right here is short and the other one is long, and we're just gonna flip them over, swap them from side to side, and then you'll be able to get the whole front end is gonna sit lower to the ground. We're gonna take this screwdriver and remove this front bumper and get it out of the road, like so. Then, I've already done this, but you grab this suspension on the back side. You can wiggle it side to side to kind of break the glue. There's a die-cast pin that comes out, or that goes into the frame, and you basically just pull that suspension peg out of the die-cast frame. We're gonna do that on both sides. And you can see here, I've already done it. And I found a screwdriver, a plier like this works the best. You'd notice that I scuff this paint, which you can use a paint pen or a Sharpie or something to kind of clean that up. After we've got the back two pins popped or out of the die-cast frame, we're going to go to the front, and I'm going to go ahead and pry up a little bit there as well with a flathead screwdriver. Now, this can be kind of tricky because you can break this part right here fairly easy, so we want to be a bit ginger here. And we're just gonna pry a little bit there, just like so, and out they come. This is the way that spindle was originally, just like so, okay? Now all we're going to do is we're gonna flip it from the driver's side to the passenger side. And what will happen is that short pin is going to go into the frame right there, thus lowering the front end. One thing I like to do is take my knife and scrape any paint residue or leftover glue off of these die-cast pegs. That just makes them go into the frame a little easier, getting rid of all that garbage. You can use your knife, you can use a plier like so, and then kind of gently twist and squeeze. You're not getting too carried away. You don't want to break anything. That's another way to shine them up. Going to inspect the base of those where it meets the die-cast frame. Just make sure there isn't any goober in there, because, man, all that glue and paint will cause you a little grief. Okay, after I've cleaned up all the paint and the goober off of these pins on the suspension, I like to take a 5/64 bit and just drill out these holes. Now the reason for that is, it makes assembly, putting all this back together again, so much easier. So the hole is a little bigger than it's supposed to be, but as you watch this, you're going to understand just why that's so valuable. So 5/64 bit, that's all I used right there. Didn't drill all the way through, of course. Just kind of cleaned up the holes and made them just slightly larger in diameter. And you're gonna see why that is a good idea. All right, now we're ready to begin putting all this back together again. I'd suggest leave that tie rod off for now. You don't need it for now, it's just gonna be in the way. And then trying to get all of this stuff to, stay in position as you're assembling it can be kind of a tricky thing all by itself. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the end of my knife like so. That way I get it right where I want it. And like I said, you can put glue in all 4 holes. You can put glue in just 1 or 2, in 2 of them. One in the front, one in the back. That's up to you. But again, this is just a nice, easy way to do this without getting glue everywhere. Okay, we've got our suspension. We're ready to go with that. I'm going to move this just a little bit so I can work on it a little easier. And I try to put the front end holes first into the frame, and then here I went ahead and got ahead of myself. We're going to try and grab those pins on the wheels like so. Now I'm going to try and get that there. Now let's see if we got it on both sides. Okay, you can see the pin is in the frame there, and also on the driver's side. That's good. Now, I'm gonna keep holding this with my thumb just so it doesn't come apart. And I'm gonna move those 2 back pins. Using this plier, the way we did when we popped those out, that plier can actually torque this and put a little bend in here, so sometimes they don't want to go in with that little extra help. So you can use tools, or you can just use your thumbnail if your thumb or fingernail is strong enough to kind of push that die cast there so it goes back into the frame. Pop, there it goes. Now we're ready to put the tie rod and our bumper back on, and any parts that maybe came off while we were working on it. And you can see, look at how this sets lower in that fender well. That's exactly the look we're going for here. Set that thing down, make it low, low, low. You can go ahead and take paint and with a either brush or a paint pen or anything and kind of tidy up wherever you scuffed off the paint on the suspension, or you can leave it. How often do you turn it upside down anyway, right? So we'll go ahead and put our tie rod on. Now, something to keep in mind, since we turn these spindles over, our tie rod goes in differently rather than it did before. And I'm gonna open that hood and get these spindles turned. Okay, now our tie rod is on. Now, here's the thing about the tie rod. It's not gonna stay in position like it did before. Why is that? Because Look at that, we got 3/16, almost a 1/4 inch of gap between this tie rod and where it used to rub up against that little notch on the transmission. Because we flipped these spindles over, we now have all that space. So these are just going to, you can't position them. I mean, I guess you can once it's set, but basically you're out of, they're not gonna stay in position. They can just move around freely. Put our bumper back on. Now, if you want to lower the rear end, all you have to do is remove the rear tires. You can use a tire tool or however you remove them. And then these suspension right here, you can take those out and then that will lower the whole rear end, so your entire truck is now going to set low. These two bell housings, they sometimes they pop out really easy, just like you saw me do. Other times there might be an extra bit of glue in there and you might break some of these pins or something. Just be aware that there's no rhyme or reason to how well these things come out. Okay, take your knife, get underneath that suspension, and it just rolls right out like that. And this, see all that gap in there? Now these tires are going to bump up right against the top of that frame. Word of caution, if you have half fenders or any other kind of fender on your truck like I do, you may have to take them off and move them. You can use a little bit of glue in there or not. That's your call. And if you don't like the distance here, sometimes when you press your tires back together, maybe there's a little more or less gap than what you had before. If you don't like the gap, you don't want that slopping around in there, you can just shorten up your axle. Or you can use small, tiny washers to make sure that your axle, that your wheel spacing is actually out to the edge of the fenders, if that's a look that you like. And there you have it. That's how you lower a DCP truck and slam it all the way to the ground. Now, there are a couple more things that you can do to get this even lower if you want to. There are low pro tires, which are smaller in diameter than these stock standard tires on 90% of all DCP trucks. You can flip out these axles and swap in some low pro axles. They're actually a trailer tire, so they're a little wider than this stock wheel here, but that again will get your clearance just even lower to the ground if that's a look you're really going for, if you want that sleek, clean, low pro look. And that's all there is to it. Many of the tools you see in this video, as well as low pro tires, you can buy at Rockin' H Farm Toys. Go make something awesome.